Great to be here. Yes, I've actually come all the way from New Zealand to be here. Hands up all the Kiwis in the crowd. There we are. So you may notice I don't actually speak like a Kiwi, thank God. Just kidding, guys. And yeah, there's a reason for that. I actually grew up in the UK, but have spent all my working life over there. So no, I'm not a marketer. I'm not an ICO marketer. I've got two roles. One, I'm the president of the New Zealand Blockchain Association, and I'm also the co-founder, director of a company called Blockchain Labs in New Zealand. And we're an advisory group specializing in blockchain smart contract-based architecture, security, best practice, and auditing. So, but we've been really lucky in that we've been involved since the early days. So for the last 2 years, we've been involved in about 30 global ICOs, and are now working on a bunch of ICOs and platform builds from a technical level. So I'd like to introduce my wonderful panel, Chris, Stephanie, and Leonard. So perhaps get you to introduce yourselves.
Sure.
So starting off with Chris.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Chris Carl, living in Toronto. Happy to be here. It's been a great conference. I'm CEO of a company that is presenting here called ICO Max, and we have a parent company, DigiCrypts, which is actually becoming public on the Canadian Securities Exchange in August. The primary element of what we're doing, though, is working with ICOs to become more regulatory compliant. And there are different types of ICOs, security tokens and utility tokens and hybrids. But on the security end, and it was mentioned yesterday in the Gibraltar conference, and we're a big believer, that if we're going to continue to attract new capital into this market, we're going to have to get better at being transparent. We were hearing that about blockchain. Being more compliant with expectations so that institutions would want to get involved and be operating in a legal manner in every way. And that's not boring, and it's not even expensive. It's just sort of the way of the future to make this industry grow. I have a background in public companies. I've raised about $500 million for other companies, and now we're trying to apply that skill on behalf of ICO issuers.
Hi, I'm Leonard Board. I'm the co-founder of a company called TokenMatch. And TokenMatch seeks to change the way that ICOs get funded. So we bring in a select group of ICOs into boardroom-like rooms where there's 20 investors in a room. We're doing one 5 minutes away from here, where we have 80 investors and we have 13 ICOs. So the ICO makes a 20-minute pitch into a room of 20 investors. And the idea is that you are afforded a level of intimacy that allows for a conversation to happen. It's hard to stand up here, pitch my ICO, and have somebody of the 500 people stand up and ask me a tough question or demonstrate interest. So we try to bring that level down, make it intimate. And we do one every month. We do them all around the globe. So we've done New York, we've done London, we're doing San Francisco, Singapore, et cetera. So we do one a month. Next year we're going to do 18. And that's all that we do. We just bring ICOs, vetted ICOs, into investor meetings.
Stephanie.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Brushell. I work for Decentral. Decentral is a consultancy, and we support startups mainly through literally every facet of their life cycle. Majority is pre-ICO, but we also help them to get funding and in the traditional way. We also then help them after the ICO or after they got the funding to build up their company and grow. We also work with enterprises. That's actually where my personal background is from. I used to work for JP Morgan. And we advise them and look through use cases which could be interesting for them. And then we also work with investors where we try to find interesting startups for them so that they can invest. That's what we do.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get into it, I just want to spend a couple of minutes just spending a bit of time explaining what an ICO is, because I think those of us in the business sometimes forget that it's such a new thing, and there'll be, I think, sure, a portion of you who haven't really had much exposure to this. So I just want to very briefly summarize it in a couple of minutes. So ICO stands for Initial Coin Offering. A more politically correct version is TGE, or Token Generation Event, but most people call it ICO, so we'll stick with that. So really, this has all emerged from the fact that over the last 2 years, we've seen this development of these sort of second-generation blockchains like Ethereum, which allow immutable, unstoppable execution of business logic, and we call that smart contract. So the first time in history, we've had this way to own and transfer ownership of digital assets, and we've never been able to do that before. And really, it's turned out that the first sort of killer app of this new sort of technology paradigm is this concept of an ICO. And very simplistically, this is how it typically works, and there's lots of variations on this, but this is sort of one way it works. So if I'm an entrepreneur, I have an idea, generally some sort of blockchain decentralized global idea. I write a white paper, I publish it. I then create a token, and the majority of the tokens have been created on the Ethereum blockchain because it's very easy to create tokens on that. And this token is intrinsically linked to my idea. So think of a token as something between a cross between a cryptocurrency, i.e. a medium of exchange, and a share in the potential value of my idea. So then I need to go out and convince a whole lot of people of my idea. And these can range from sophisticated investors through to Joe Public, anonymous, anybody in the world. But I've got to convince them to basically swap their existing cryptocurrency, Bitcoin Ether, which has real world value, with my new token that I want you to believe has future value. So, and this is where the traditional marketing and community building concept comes in, which we'll talk about. So then you have your ICO period, which may last hours, months, weeks, whatever, and where this swapping occurs. So people send in their cryptocurrency and the entrepreneur sends out their new token that they've just invented. And if all goes well, I, the entrepreneur, raise a whole lot of cryptocurrency, which I can use to build my thing. And this is happening, and it's happening a lot over the last, so some of the figures, I got this from Chris, so blame me if they're completely wrong, but there are sort of varying figures, but it's basically increasing exponentially. 2016, 100 million, 2017, 4 billion, so far 2018, about 12 billion raised. So, so for many people, this whole ICO concept is a wonderfully, an amazing way to democratize capital raising. So, we'll start off with a panel, a couple of questions for the panel. So, perhaps Stephanie, who are we marketing ICOs to?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, easily said it's the community, but the question is who is the community? So, and I think that's actually one of the challenges for the ICOs as well. We have, on the one side, we have the users, the ones we want our tokens to be used. And then on the other side, we have the investors who want to make money with the raise of the token value. Interestingly, within the investor space, we kind of have two completely different types of investors. We have the old traditional institutional investors who've done it for a long time, and then we have this new crypto generation. And they have completely different needs, and they have completely mindsets. And that's probably the tricky part to understand and make sure you market to both groups.
And presumably, I guess also within that sort of new generation, we've got the pump and dump guys, and we've got the hodl guys. So the pump and dump, they want to sort of make a quick buck, and then the hodl guys who are investing for the long term.
These are probably the users, or hopefully the users who like your systems and want to be involved in your systems, and it's going to be a community, very important.
Leonard, have you got any thoughts on that? Or?
So our focus is on the institutional side. We're trying to pursue and present in the proper light to family offices, to funds, to wealthy individuals. We're trying to present the ICO in its best light. We've added a component, which is a live streaming event, so that you don't have to be present in the room to be able to see the presentations. But I concur with what Stephanie said. I think that there are two big, large fields. One is the user side, and the other is the investor side. Although there are no firm statistics, but if I were to guess, I think the vast majority of the dollars are raised on the fund side, because those are large tickets. And then on the user side, you have the user pyramid, which is the bottom of the pyramid, which is wide and broad, and those are the people that become committed to using the applications.
Chris?
I agree with all. I mean, we always have a group of retail investors, which tend to be smaller in transaction size, but large in number, and institutional investors, which are the opposite and a lot larger in dollars. Our particular model as ICO Max is really to help smaller entities who are just getting started in the ICO process start to develop a global awareness. Our app is applied and used around the world in every continent between ourselves and our global advisors. We have a social media following of approximately 4 million people. I think within that, the number of distinct people is probably closer down to 1 million or just below that. And what we do is we take for very low cost and work with new ICO issuers, even if they're at their first sort of pre-sale level, and create that awareness for them at a very low cost by building their message out around conferences, around social media, and allowing very, very quick access to all the in-depth information, including white paper for anybody who might be interested. So by creating the awareness, you start to generate interest. There's always within a large population, depending on what the application is going to be. There's people that say a music application, which I heard about today, which sounded really great. People will say, wow, I'm interested in that, and they'll be the ones who follow up. 90% of the other audience that you're pointing to aren't interested in that, so they'll pass that one and they'll look at the next one. But getting the message out on a broad scale at the beginning is a great way to go, and then to finish and close, it's also good to get in front of a smaller group.
Cool. And what would you say the difference what's the difference between marketing an ICO and marketing anything else? I guess perhaps Stephanie.
I think there's probably two folds in there. I think the one is the trust, which kind of isn't there yet, and we all need to work together and build that up. You startups, you need to make sure that you get your story right and you have viable products. And we advisors, we need to help you to make sure that you're doing it the right way. I think that's the one part, and the other part is probably the whole transparency around it, right? I think it's as great as this kind of decentralization is, it's 24/7 community out there who is monitoring you. And they challenge you on everything you say. They hold you accountable for everything what you say, which is a good thing, as long as you fulfill what you're saying. But it's a very challenging transparency out there, which I think we're not used to in the traditional world.
I think it's pretty fair to say, I mean, all of us are sort of bombarded by people who want to ICO, and we want, it's in our best interest to pick the winners to be associated with. So there's a sort of almost there's an onus on us to do, before we even accept new clients, to do enough due diligence to really scratch the surface a little bit. And it's hard, often when we're not domain experts in their domain. But
I think it's very important because we have to help to create trust into the system, and the only way we do it is that all of us are basically filtering out the ones which are not viable, which are not going to survive because they have the wrong business model, or blockchain doesn't make sense, or token is not needed, and we just need to filter that out. And if we all together do that, I think we hopefully get some more trust into this whole industry, and then I think then we're talking about numbers in terms of money, but then the world is really open, because if you really get the trust into that, there's so much more money out there from traditional businesses who are at the moment not looking at it at all.
Yeah. Leonard, what would you say some of the key challenges are?
First of all, how many in the room are thinking about issuing an ICO?
Yeah.
Great, so we have, and how many have done so? Anybody have done so? I'd love to hear their thoughts. Okay, so we have about a dozen people. Oh, there's one in the back that has done so already. I think the challenges are, I think there are two categories, two very broad categories. There are those that come with a reputation. So those are the gentlemen and the ladies that have the entrepreneurs that have already raised funds, that are able to access the funding networks quickly. And that small group exists. Imagine Vitalik from Ethereum raising something new. That would probably be filled in 10 seconds, and there would be a long waiting list of people trying to get in to demonstrate an extreme. The rest of us have to signal and build and establish credibility using other means, because we don't have the reputation established. So the things that people look for, and I think there's no secrets here, but I'll go through them. Having a proper team that has domain expertise, having proper token economics that demonstrate that you understand and that your goals are aligned with your user community, having an innovation that is significant and not just another, I won't throw an example not to offend anybody, but there are enough different applications that are equally the same, and some will succeed and some will not. But all these elements start to build, and then what Stephanie raised is that once you put all that together and then you expose yourself to the community to see if everything that you've said on your white paper and then you say on your webpage is, there was a case of which there were two identical twin brothers, and each one is launching an ICO, and the community thought that he was not dedicated enough and that he was lying about his intentions until they had to take a picture of themselves to show that in fact that there was two people and not just one person lying about each other's name. So to that level of degree is the interrogation process. So it's establishing your reputation. Now you can do that through third parties, you can do that through your team. But that's the biggest thing that we all need to do, is that establish a reputation so that people invest in us.
Cool. Chris, what would you say the basic elements of a marketing plan are?
I think starting off with not even thinking about the ICO, but thinking about the company and what you're developing. The days of sort of quick in and out and not worrying about who bought your tokens, I think those are going by the wayside. You need a longer term real plan, and you need to be building a business model that's sustainable, not just with the financing, but ultimately is going to hopefully be generating some sort of its own revenue in time for it to be an interesting ICO. So that's part of it. So having a business plan that makes really good sense is long-term sustainable. And then you get into different layers. It depends on how you plan to fund, but you have to be in front of those investors who like your business model. And then I think also finally, you have to have a business that's scalable. It's not just making your project sound good. You have to remember, like in your case, when you've got 80 investors in the room, they're not just looking at one project and saying, I like it. They're looking at it against 30 other projects, and which one do they like most? And so you've got to be competitive, not just having a good business model, but think, what is it going to make mine really great? And one of the things that does, get a profitable model in the short term in a smaller way, but then have a plan as to how you can scale it, frankly, globally, because we are a global marketplace. And I'm a big believer that if you have a plan that can make you global fairly quickly, that becomes something that makes you more interesting than the next presenter in the room.
Leonard, anything to add to that?
No, I think he's done a good job. He's done a good job of covering it.
Okay. One of the questions is the question about in-house or outsourced. Stephanie, have you got any thoughts about pros and cons?
Of course I do. We are a consultancy. I think you need both, right? You need the in-house people, absolutely, totally important, right? The people who come to us and hand us their white paper and say, like, can you please marketing for us? That's not going to work, right? We are not magicians, right? So we need the in-house people to help us develop their story, and we talked about it, right? The trustworthiness of that, but also kind of feed us news, and we help them to create news. But everything you do, if you hire, like, one of our clients, CoinWeb, talked about Paul, who is the inventor of DNS. That's a great news, right? That's something we want to bring in. So we need the in-house people. But then we really recommend work with experts. There are experts out there, and this is such a complex space. So there are so different areas. There's community building, and there are people who do nothing else than community building. They sit there 24/7. They know exactly how to manage a crisis. So absolutely go and come via us, so directly go to those third parties where they can help you guys, because they're really experts out there. What we also find is what I think is a very interesting fact is sometimes we externals, we have a slightly different view on your business than you have. So you get sometimes you tell yourself that this is a great case, and we challenge you maybe in a little bit different way than you would in-house. We also are not involved in any company politics, so maybe sometimes we don't worry about stepping onto anybody's feet, right? So we just really tell you how the outside will see you. And I think that's a very, very interesting element and very important aspect. That's why I absolutely think the model needs to be a combination of both.
Yeah. Chris, anything to add to that?
Your very last phrase, a combination of both, always. And every situation is different, depends on your level of expertise. And to not make maybe necessarily super long commitments to third parties, but being able to grow with a third party who can help you market your ICO or the pre-sales that you might be doing. So big believer in it, because I think people like us who do a lot of it, we can help you make that a simpler process and we can make it faster. So you might have to pay some fees, but you're not going to make as many mistakes and you're going to get to your end market a lot faster. And I think that's the way that frankly, the experts and the outside third parties can help you the most.
Yeah. And I guess it's fair to say that in that sort of combined sort of in-house outsourced sort of model, there needs to be a very close relationship, a lot of collaboration, a lot of trust, a lot of, the people who are outsourcing this to, they have to really believe in it, obviously, and have gone through that sort of, tests.
And if just to that, and even what Stephanie was saying, we might have a slightly different opinion on the business. You can be right and you know your business the best, but we know what the investors are looking for, maybe a little bit more because we've had more experience in it. So that collaboration and listening a little bit to how we can help you position it to get the most impact, I think is a big thing.
So are we going for the Q&A now, or are we time out now and Q&A? No, we've got...
No.
5, okay, cool. Taking time. Okay, and I mean, how many people would you say, Steph, would it take to manage this sort of thing in-house? I mean, I guess it depends on the scale of the project. Have you any experience with that?
Well, it's very hard to say because it's really on a case-by-case basis, right? It depends a little bit. What is your marketing strategy? What is your underlying business model? So I think to put a number against that, I think is also the question: how much do you outsource and how much do you not outsource? I mean, what I want to really kind of encourage people, don't shy off too much in terms of the costs you have to pay for these external experts, because if you look closer or if you work with the right kind of third parties, you sometimes get even better fees than on the third party services, right? So for example, we can help you to get ICO listings cheaper, and if not cheaper, at least you can bump up the waiting list. We have the people who have done it for years and years and years, they have the connections and the network. So it might be like a cost which you have to bear, but then you hopefully get it back on other third parties, which through that connection you can get cheaper.
Right. And roughly what costs are we talking for Chris? I mean, to outsource it?
That's so hard to say because it's, obviously as a percentage of the amount you're raising, it's going to be a higher percentage if you're only raising a smaller amount. Sub $10 million than if you're raising $100 million to $200 or $1 billion. But ICO Max, and just to sort of plug what we're doing, is we're trying to make the very front level of that very low. I mean, we can do it, help you, reach 1 million sets of eyeballs, discrete eyeballs for $10,000 a month. But we wouldn't be the only party that you would go to, but we can certainly help you get started in that process. Consultants who are going to have their ways of helping you find other buyers, the type of project you do, those get more expensive, but they all I think pay off very, very well, and they help you get to the success point much faster.
I mean, Leonard, are you willing to share your cost model? Or?
Yeah, sure, but I think that there's something that, we focus on the mechanics of the ICO, and I think there's something different happening. What's happening is entrepreneurs are able to think about this. We've had this thought about ringing the bell at the NASDAQ, that the public company, and that was the ultimate dream of every entrepreneur. It was to ring the public company. And now that's happening 100 times, 150 times a month. We are ringing through an ICO. We've taken over the process. There's no longer a bell. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, maybe twice-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So if you're very passionate about this, we've disintermediated all the gatekeepers that didn't let us ring that bell. So now we're going for the bells ourselves, and we're ringing our own bells. So find companies like Decentral, find companies like ICO Max, find everybody that can help you get there, because this is the ultimate dream, is to be able to own your own company. And now, instead of going through the gates of venture capital, in which you sit down with 5 guys, whether you've been in the industry 30 years or 30 minutes, they know always more than you, and they're wrapped around this contract. Here you're going straight to the masses, and you're having them believe, establishing trust, like Stephanie said, but bring everybody that you can to make this happen. So going back to your question, we charge a percentage in fiat and a larger percentage in tokens. So over 120 have applied to present a token match. Only about a third make it through, because it makes no sense. I mean, I am betting along with you in your development and in your program. And for me, for my investors that show up, The product is the ICO, so we make it very efficient for an investor group to see 15 in one day that are vetted. And on the flip side of that, an ICO is able to meet 80 investors in one day. Think about all the logistics of traveling and connections and time trying to make that happen. But I tell you, go for it. Bring everybody that you can, make it a big family, and raise the funds and run your own company and make it global, like Carl was saying. So I'm super enthusiastic about all that is going on, and
We can see.
and I want the next time we do this, I want 100 hands saying I'm going ICO here, because we can. Nobody's stopping us. It's just ourselves.
Chris, what can go wrong?
I think the biggest one for entrepreneurs is that everybody thinks it's going to happen faster than it really does. Everybody thinks that they're going to be able to do it cheaper than it really costs. And so if you don't plan for these sorts of surprises, what goes wrong is you get halfway through and then you run out of cash, or you run out of effort, or you run out your team, you lose half of your team. So planning that, take it in your mind how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take, and double both of them and then double them again, and then you got a good business plan. But that's the biggest one, I think, is not being ready for the amount of effort and the amount of time that it's really going to take.
Yep. Okay, I think we need to jump into some questions now, I think. So, right, the dollar's being raised. Are the investors converting from fiat, or is it funds from crypto equivalents? Any of you guys want to comment on that?
It's crypto, yeah, primarily crypto. There's some fresh dollars going in, but what we see is mostly crypto going through. Now, it doesn't mean that the crypto wasn't bought that day to be able to issue, but primarily it's going into wallets, so it's hard to throw fiat into wallets.
Yeah, so I mean, and for the public sales, certainly we've been involved in architecting and auditing, so it's a smart contract, so it has to have Ether generally pushed into it, and it's it's an automated system and a transparent system. It should, you should see where that crypto is going. Okay, the old valuation question, but how in this space do you even try and calculate a valuation for raising pre-ICO? That old chestnut. Anybody want to jump in on that one? How do you value an ICO?
I think it's highly subjective, obviously, and it becomes a question of, do you believe in the team, like what you were establishing before? Are these guys trustworthy? Is the industry large enough? Is the innovation significant? Or are they a fast follower or a me too? So I think that it's about the opportunity that is being presented to you. Are you discovering the new blank? Or are you investing in the 17th game token? Right.
But there are these rating sites, aren't there? We were having a look the other day. There's a whole bunch of rating sites which supposedly give
But they don't give you the valuation.
No, but they give you a
reputational score.
Reputation which may influence what you value it as, I guess. That's one of the things.
Sure.
I think the short answer to that is there is no valuation model yet, right? I was speaking to one of the valuation companies, and I said, let's try to come up with something, but there's certainly nothing there yet. It's especially pre-ICO. It's just a negotiation, really, right? You sit with them in the room, and you try to do exactly what you said, right?
But I'll tell you,
Into the kind of
just
the
in
team,
Silicon
the
Valley,
product,
there's 256 unicorns.
Yeah.
And because they're in these large ponds, they become large fish. Because the opportunities are so large, the fish become large. If the ponds are tiny, if the industries and the opportunities are small, then it's the little fish. But there's little rationale also on how to value these 255 unicorns only in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're time up. We'll try for one more question.
What about of the companies involved?
Yep. Of the companies you have worked with or are looked into, how many actually need a token or execute their business model? Who wants to go first?
Yeah.
First of all, I'd go back to there's two types of tokens, utility and there is security tokens, which are highly regulatory compliant. I mean, utility token is much more an extension of crowdfunding and often can happen faster than a security token, but longer term, I would argue that the security token is going to have better value and be able to sustain its value. And so, of the question, and I've lost the question. Where did it go? I was looking at the top.
How many actually need it?
Percentage.
Exactly. How many need it? It's a great way of raising money. And a common share is another great way, or a private placement of a company. But I think that if you're in a digital space and you're in your community that you're selling into is digitally minded, it's a great way to go. Sorry.
Yeah, business model, right. In terms of business model, I don't have, we've seen about 120 different ICOs. I'd say about a third of them the token is really weaved in hardcore into the model. Where without the token, then it loses some of its, it doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, we had a similar percentage,
Yeah.
I'd say, for us.
But that's one of the biggest things. That's a great question, and I think that the third that completely fall apart are because when you ask them, couldn't you do this with Ether? Or couldn't you do this with fiat? Or some of them even go ICO and then take regular currency as payments and dilute the value of their currency. So those business models are weaker. But I'd say about a third.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're out of time, so we'll need to wrap it up so we can start.
Okay, big round of applause for the panel. Thank you. And thanks for a great discussion as the last panel of the conference. Give him another round of applause just for being here. Thank you.